Hello and welcome to Workers' Comp Unwrapped, the podcast that simplifies workers' compensation for physicians. I'm your host, Max, here to give you clear, actionable insights to navigate the medical legal side of workers' comp. So let's get started. Welcome to our first ever episode of Workers' Comp Unwrapped with Max, a series dedicated to, demystifying the world of workers' compensation. And today we're joined by the amazing Charlotte, who's been navigating this world for over 15 years.
Hi, everyone. Excited to be here.
So Charlotte, California, we hear a lot about it, right? Their unique approach to worker protection laws. What makes them stand out in the world of workers' comp?
California has always been a leader in workers' rights, and their workers' compensation system is a great example of that. It's not just about requiring employers to have coverage, although that's definitely key. California takes this really comprehensive approach, providing a real safety net for workers who are injured on the job.
Interesting. Could you, unpack that safety net a little bit? What are the specifics there?
Think of it like a three-part support system. First off, California's workers' comp system makes sure that all medical expenses that come directly from a work-related injury or illness are completely covered. So we're talking doctor's visits, any kind of specialized treatments, surgeries, meds, everything. The system's designed to take away that financial burden of medical care so you can concentrate on getting better.
So it's not just like a quick trip to the clinic.
Right.
We're talking about, full-on medical care here. What about the financial side of things for someone who can't work, say, because of an injury they got at work?
Right, so that's where the second part of the support system comes in, wage replacement. If you can't work because of your injury, even for a little bit, workers' comp will give you money to help you out while you're not getting a paycheck. In California, this usually works out to about 2/3 of your average weekly wage, which isn't your whole salary, but it really helps during what can be a really hard time financially.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's that peace of mind, right? Knowing that an injury doesn't mean you're totally out of luck financially. But what about long-term impacts? Let's say someone has an injury that prevents them from going back to the same job they had before.
Okay, so that's where the third part comes in. Disability benefits. These benefits are specifically for when a work injury or illness means that someone's going to be disabled for a long time, maybe even permanently, so they can't do the same job anymore. California has both temporary and permanent disability benefits. It depends on how serious the disability is.
Okay, that makes sense. So it covers both the immediate financial hit and then the possibility of needing support or retraining further down the line. Now, we all know dealing with insurance companies can be a little, let's say, interesting sometimes. Is there a chance that claims could be denied or they push back, even in a system like California's, which seems pretty comprehensive?
You've hit on a really important point. California's system is set up to protect workers, but insurance companies are businesses. And like any business, they sometimes look for ways to, save money. This can mean they might deny or dispute claims, even if the claims are totally legit.
Right. Makes sense, sadly. So then what can workers do if that happens? If they get a denial or their claim is disputed, are they just on their own with this whole system?
Not at all. This is where applicant attorneys come in. These are lawyers who focus on workers' compensation cases. They're like advocates for injured workers. They know the ins and outs of the system, the procedures, and how to make sure workers' rights are protected.
So they kind of even the playing field a bit against the insurance company.
Yeah, exactly. They're there to guide you, collect evidence, and really present a strong case for you. Especially important if your claim runs into problems. If a claim's denied, you have the right to appeal, and these attorneys are key in helping you through that whole appeals process.
Speaking of appeals, you mentioned the WCAB earlier. What exactly is their role?
Oh, right. The WCAB, the Workers' Compensation Appeals Board, they're essential to how things work in California. You can think of them as the neutral party in workers' comp disagreements. They make sure everything's fair, that the rules are followed, and they look at the evidence to make decisions based on what's right in each case,
Got it. So another layer of checks and balances to ensure the system's functioning as intended.
Yeah, that's right. California's put a lot of thought into making sure the system is fair, balanced, and really does what it's supposed to do, protect workers when they get hurt or sick because of their jobs. And, it's not always just about getting people back on their feet right away. Sometimes after an injury, someone might need to, rethink their career path.
Right, you're talking about that job retraining program you mentioned.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what? I actually had this one case really shows you how powerful this program can be. I was working with this construction worker. We'll call him John. John got this back injury, meant he couldn't do any more heavy lifting. But through this retraining program, he was actually able to go after this thing he'd always loved, computer programming.
Wow.
Yeah, he got all this training, tons of support, and ended up getting a job as a software developer. Just goes to show you, California really goes the extra mile to help injured workers get back on track, even if it means a whole new direction.
That's amazing. And kind of inspiring, honestly. It's like, we're not just talking about dollars and cents here, but actual life changes.
Absolutely, yeah. It's about giving people real opportunities, a chance at a good future, not just a handout.
Totally. So, shifting gears a bit, while we obviously hope for the best, we also have to think about the worst case scenarios. What happens if a worker, tragically, passes away because of something that happened on the job?
It's a tough subject, for sure, but so important to talk about. California's workers' comp system has something called death benefits, and those are there to support the families of workers who die from a work-related injury or illness. These benefits usually cover things like funeral costs and also provide ongoing financial help to make up for the lost income.
Right, to ease the burden a bit in such a difficult time.
Exactly, because losing someone is never just about that initial loss. It impacts everything that comes after, too.
For sure. So we've been talking a lot about California, but you mentioned earlier that workers' comp laws are different in every state. Just how big are those differences? And can you give us an example of a state where it's really different from California?
Oh, the differences can be huge, like night and day. And those differences can mean a lot less protection for workers. For example, you know how we assume every state makes employers have workers' comp insurance? Well, Texas is the one state that doesn't. They don't require employers to have it.
Wait, really? I had no idea. So what does that mean for someone working in Texas if they get hurt on the job?
It means they could be in a really tough spot. Lots of employers in Texas do choose to have coverage, but because it's not the law, some companies don't bother. And if you're working for one of those companies, you could be out of luck.
Wow, so it's like a total gamble, depending on the employer. That's a big contrast to California.
It really is. It shows you how different things can be and how crucial it is for workers to be aware of their state's laws. Especially in states where workers have fewer protections, they need to be proactive.
Yeah.
Look into their rights, think about other options, like maybe getting personal accident insurance, things like that.
Knowledge is power, as they say, especially when it comes to this kind of stuff. Now, we can't ignore the elephant in the room, the gig economy. It's huge now. But things like workers' comp seem designed for, more traditional jobs. Where do independent contractors like freelancers or those gig workers fit into all of this?
That's a really good question, and it shows how the traditional system doesn't always fit the way people work today. See, independent contractors, they're not considered employees in the usual sense. So because of that, they usually aren't covered by workers' comp in most states, even California.
So if you're like an Uber driver or freelance writer, or even if you've got your own small business and you get hurt working, you're basically on your own.
Pretty much, yeah. The old system, it was made for employers and employees, and it just doesn't really know what to do with this new way of working.
Which seems like a major problem with so many people, part of the gig economy now. Is anyone trying to fix this to get some coverage for independent contractors?
Yeah, people are definitely starting to realize this is a big deal, and some states are looking at ways to change things. There's been talk about making a special category for gig workers or setting up like a portable benefits fund that independent contractors could use. But it's tricky. There are a lot of legal and logistical things to figure out, so there aren't any easy answers just yet.
So, for now, it's kind of on the individual to figure out their own safety net. That's a bit concerning.
It is. It really highlights how important it is for independent contractors to be, their own advocate. They need to look out for themselves. Consider things like personal accident insurance or income protection policies to fill the gap, since the regular workers' comp system isn't really there for them.
Really good advice. So we've talked about a lot today, from how comprehensive California's system is to those big differences between states and, of course, the whole gig worker situation. If you had to pick, like, the top things you want our listeners to take away from this, what would they be?
Oh, let's see. The big one, I think, is to remember that for most employees, workers' comp isn't some kind of favor. It's their right. It's there to protect them, give them support if something happens at work. So use it and be proactive. Find out what the rules are in your state because, like we said, things can be really different depending on where you live. And, honestly, knowing what you're dealing with is so important. Understanding your rights, how the system works, what resources are out there for you, that's powerful stuff. It can make a huge difference.
Absolutely. It's easy to feel lost with all this, but the more you know, the better you can look out for yourself.
Exactly. And don't forget, there are people like those applicant attorneys we talked about, real experts in this stuff. They can help you every step of the way if you need it.
Like having a guide, right? Someone who knows the terrain when you're in unfamiliar territory.
Wow.
So before we wrap up, any last bits of wisdom for our listeners as they navigate the workers' comp world?
I guess it would be this. We've been talking a lot about laws and money and all that, but remember, at the heart of it all, it's about people, Getting hurt at work, dealing with an illness, it's tough. It affects you in a lot of ways, not just physically. So be good to yourself. Lean on your support system. Don't be afraid to ask for what you need during the whole process.
Right. It's more than just forms and deadlines. It's real lives being impacted.
Exactly. And, you don't have to go through it alone.
Couldn't agree more. Charlotte, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for taking the time to break all this down with us.
My pleasure, really. Anything to help demystify this stuff, Always happy to talk about it.
Thanks for listening to Workers' Comp Unwrapped. If you found value in today's episode, subscribe and share with fellow doctors. Stay informed and keep making a difference in your patients' care.